So, our new wife, what will you cook first?
I don't cook.
You are joking right now.
I am not joking. I don't cook. I run a business. David knew this.
The elder stared at her. His smile faded into deep confusion. He looked at David for help. David looked at the floor. The wedding reception hall went dead silent. The sound of cutlery stopped. The low hum of gossip died instantly. Margaret Bello rose to her feet. She did not speak. She removed her gele slowly, folding it with the precision of a soldier folding a flag at a ceremony. She placed it on her chair. Then she walked toward the exit. Every head turned, every mouth opened. The air in the room shifted. It became heavy with judgment. David grabbed Stella's arm. His grip was tight. Panic laced his voice. What was that? What was what? You just told my entire family you don't cook at our wedding. I told the truth. Would you prefer I lied? It is a reception, Stella, not a courtroom. Margaret's heels clicked against the tiled floor. The sound cut through the silence like a countdown. David released Stella and ran after his mother. The guests sat frozen. Food went cold on their plates. The scent of expensive perfume mixed with the heavy aroma of jollof rice. Nobody touched it. Stella's mother covered her face with both hands. Her friend Comfort leaned over. At least she didn't say she can't clean too. This is not funny, Comfort. I am not laughing. I am praying. At the exit, David caught his mother's arm. Mama, please come back. Margaret turned. Her eyes were dry, calm, terrifying. David, I built my first restaurant with 2 pots and a charcoal stove. I have fed this family for 30 years. Your wife just told 200 people she does not cook. She didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it? David opened his mouth. He had no answer. Margaret stepped closer. Her voice was a whisper, but it carried the weight of a shout. Your wife has drawn a line. She will either cross it herself or I will cross it for her. She pulled her arm free, got into her car and drove off. David walked back inside. The DJ had stopped the music. Half the guests were leaving. The other half were on their phones. They were spreading the news faster than wildfire. Stella stood where he left her, arms folded, chin up. She looked like a woman who had won an argument she would spend years regretting. Are you happy now? David asked. I am not unhappy. That is not the same thing. Stella's mother lowered her hands. Her eyes were red. You have ruined your own wedding day, Stella. I saved myself a lifetime of pretending, Mama. Comfort shook her head slowly. Pride is a heavy meal, my dear. It does not digest well. The caterers packed up untouched jollof rice. Drinks nobody had time to enjoy sat on the tables. Her wedding cake sat alone. 3 tiers of sugar and ego. Stella picked up her phone. She posed for a quick selfie in her flowing white dress. She posted it online. The caption read, Married, still don't cook, booked and busy. 6,000 likes in 3 minutes. She smiled at the screen. She felt validated. She felt untouchable. The digital world agreed with her. What she did not know was that Margaret was not on social media. Margaret was in her study. She was already making plans of her own. 3 days after the wedding, David drove Stella to his mother's house. He gripped the steering wheel the entire way. His knuckles were white. You don't have to do this, he said. She invited me. I will go. My mother does not invite people for tea, Stella. She summons them for war. Good, I am not dressed for tea. David parked outside the date and did not move. He turned to her. Can we agree on one thing? No matter what she says, do not challenge her in her own house. Stella opened the door. I will be polite. That is what worries me. Margaret was sitting in her living room. No television, no music. Just silence and a glass of water on the table. She wore a simple bubuka, no jewelry. She looks like a woman who had been thinking for 3 days straight. Sit down, Stella. Stella sat. David remained standing. Margaret did not acknowledge him. You said at your wedding that you do not cook. I said what was true. Good. I respect truth. It is the lie of politeness that destroys families. Margaret leaned forward. I own a restaurant, the Copper Pot. It has been losing money for 2 years. 3 managers have failed. I want you to run it for 6 months. Stella blinked. You want me to run a restaurant? Turn a profit and I will never mention cooking to you again. Not at Christmas, not at naming ceremonies, not when I'm old and bitter. Never. And if I fail, you will undergo proper training in my home under my supervision. Stella's mouth opened then closed. She felt the trap closing around her, but she refused to show fear. I have a business degree. I grew my fashion brand from nothing. A restaurant is just another business. Margaret smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a chess player who sees the board clearly. Then you have nothing to fear. David stepped forward. Mama, this is not fair. Stella just married into this family. You cannot put this burden on her. Did I ask you to speak, David? She is my wife. And she made a public declaration. Now she will back it with action. Sit down. David sat. Stella studied Margaret's face. There was something behind those eyes. Not cruelty. Something older. Something personal. What exactly is the Copper Pot? Stella asked. It was her first big success, David said. It used to be the best traditional restaurant in the city. Now it is a graveyard. Why did it fail? Nobody knows. She fired 3 managers in 2 years. She stopped going there. She just watches it bleed. And she wants me to stop the bleeding? She wants you to perform a miracle, David said. Or she wants you to fail. With my mother, it is always both. Stella looked back at Margaret. I accept. David closed his eyes. Stella! I accept, Mama. 6 months. When do I start? Monday morning, 6 o'clock, not 6:05. 6. Stella stood. She shook Margaret's hand. The grip was firm on both sides. Then she walked out.
David followed her to the car in silence. When they were inside, he turned to her. You just made a deal with the devil. Stella started the engine. Your mother is not the devil. She's a businesswoman. So am I. She has destroyed people with less. Then she hasn't met me yet. David stared out of the window. He knew his mother's history. He knew what she did to competitors. He knew what she did to traitors. And now, his wife had volunteered for the battlefield. Stella drove with her eyes on the road. Her heart was beating fast, but her face was a mask of stone. She would not let Margaret see her sweat. She would not let David see her doubt. She had built a fashion brand from scratch. She had negotiated with ruthless suppliers. She had faced bankruptcy and won. A dying restaurant was just another problem to solve. But as she turned the corner, a cold feeling settled in her stomach. She had a degree in business. She did not have a degree in survival. Not Margaret's kind of survival. Before we continue, if you're enjoying Stella's bold stand, take a second to like this video and tell us where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Rosa Tales for more unforgettable stories. Now, let's get back to it. Monday morning, 5:45. Stella stood outside the Copper Pot and stared. The sign was hanging by a thread. One letter was missing. It read, the copper P, with the T falling off. The paint was peeling. The windows had not been cleaned in months. A stray dog slept against the front door like he owned the place. She pushed the door open. The smell hit her first. Old oil, stale air, something that might have been soup 3 weeks ago. The dining area had 12 tables. 4 had broken legs. The chairs were mismatched. The floor was sticky. A ceiling fan hung at a dangerous angle, moving slowly like it was deciding whether to fall. "You must be the new manager." Stella turned. A tall woman stood in the doorway to the kitchen, arms folded, expression flat. She wore a faded uniform that had been washed so many times the color had given up. "I am Teresa, senior waitress. Only waitress, actually. The other two left last month." "Where is the chef?" "Ngozi. She comes when she comes." Stella walked toward the kitchen. Teresa did not move from the doorway. She simply watched the way a cat watches a mouse enter a room. The kitchen was worse. 2 stoves. One worked. The refrigerator hummed in a key that suggested it was dying. Pots were stacked in the sink, unwashed. The prep table had a crack running through the middle. Stella opened the refrigerator. The smell made her step back. She closed it quickly. "When was the last time this was cleaned?" she asked. Teresa shrugged. The last manager said cleaning was not in his job description. "How many managers have there been?" "In 2 years, 3. The first one lasted over a year. The second, 5 months. The third one came on a Monday and left on a Wednesday. He said this place made him question his purpose in life." Stella almost laughed. Almost. She sat at the only stable table and opened the ledger. The numbers were a disaster. Revenue had been declining for 26 months straight, but the reports sent to Margaret showed modest profits. Someone had been lying. "Who prepares the financial reports sent to the owner?" she asked. Teresa tilted her head. "The manager does. Why?" Stella ran her finger down the column. Every month showed a small profit, but the bank deposits did not match. Money was leaving the restaurant and going somewhere else. "How much do you get paid, Teresa?" "Why?" Simple question. "Minimum wage, sometimes late." "The reports show profit. So, where is the money going?" Teresa stared at her for a long time. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "You are asking the wrong questions on your first day, new manager. Ask me again when you survive the first week." Stella closed the ledger. She had survived fashion school. She had survived building a brand with no capital. She would survive this, she hoped. The first week was a war. Monday afternoon, Stella called her regular suppliers. The man on the phone laughed. "The copper pot? That place is still open. I need 200 kilos of rice, 50 kilos of chicken, and fresh vegetables. Can you deliver by tomorrow? Pay cash, no credit, and I will charge you delivery fee because that area is too far." I said the previous manager had credit. "The previous manager owes me money. He vanished, so no credit, cash only. Take it or leave it." Stella took it. She used her own savings. Tuesday, the vegetables arrived half rotten. She called to complain. The supplier said the heat spoiled them. No refund, no replacement. She threw away half the order and lost money. Wednesday, a customer found something in his soup. He called it a cockroach. Teresa called it a spice. The customer knocked his plate off the table, cursed everyone, and left without paying. He said he would post it online. He did. Thursday was quiet. Too quiet. 0 customers. Stella sat alone in the dining area, staring at the broken ceiling fan. Teresa read a magazine behind the counter. Ngozi, the chef, showed up at noon, cooked 3 dishes for no one, and left at 2. "You cook for ghosts?" Stella asked. "I cook because I am paid. Whether people eat or not is between you and God." Friday morning, Stella found a note on her car windshield. She almost missed it. A small piece of paper tucked under the wiper. She pulled it out. 2 words. "Go home, small girl." She looked around the street. Empty. She turned the paper over. Nothing on the back. She showed it to Teresa. Teresa glanced at it and went back to her magazine. "Are you not going to say anything?" Stella asked. "What is there to say? Someone does not want you here. That is not new. The last manager got a note too." "What did he say?" "The same thing. He left right away." Stella folded the notes and put it in her bag. "I am not him." Teresa turned a page. They all say that. That evening, Stella sat in her apartment staring at the note. David called. "How was your week?" Fantastic. Spoiled food, angry customers, threatening notes, a chef who works 3 hours, and a waitress who thinks she's auditioning for a silent movie. David was quiet. Mama called me today. She asked how you were doing. What did you tell her? I said you were settling in. Good, because I am not giving her the satisfaction of hearing the truth. Not yet.
She hung up and looked at the note again. She folded it carefully, placed it inside her notebook, and wrote a single line beneath it. Who are you? The following Monday, Stella arrived at 6. The kitchen door was open. Ngozi stood inside, arms folded, apron already off. I am leaving, she said. Stella dropped her bag. What? I got a better offer. New restaurant opening across town. Better pay, better kitchen, better everything. You cannot just leave. We have customers. You have no customers. That is the problem. I am a chef, not a martyr. She picked up a knife bag. 3 other kitchen staff stood behind her. They looked at the floor. They are coming with me, Ngozi said. I need a prep team. They need salaries that actually arrive on time. Stella blocked the doorway. I will match whatever they are offering you. Give me 1 week. You cannot match what I am offering myself. Respect. Move aside, madam. This is not your fight. Ngozi walked past her. The 3 staff followed. One of them, a young man, glanced back with something close to regret. Then he was gone. Stella stood in the empty kitchen. 1 stove, 1 dying refrigerator. No chef, no staff. Teresa appeared in the doorway. So, it is just us now, Teresa said. You know how to cook? I know how to boil water. That is where my talent ends. Wonderful. The first customer arrived at noon. An older man. He ordered jollof rice and chicken. Stella stared at the order ticket like it was written in a foreign language. She went into the kitchen. She found rice, she found chicken, she found tomato paste that might have been from the last presidential administration. She cooked. The rice burned on the bottom and was raw on top. The chicken was golden outside and pink inside. The stew tasted like someone had whispered tomato near a pot of water and hoped for the best. The man took 1 bite. His face went through several stages: confusion, betrayal, pain. He pushed the plate away. Young woman, is this food or punishment? I am so sorry, sir. The kitchen is going through changes. Your meal is on the house. Even free, this is expensive. He stood and left. Teresa watched from the counter. You know, the last manager also tried cooking once. He cried in the storeroom for 20 minutes. I am not crying. There is still time. The next 3 days were a catastrophe. Stella overcooked everything. She undercooked everything. She once confused salt for sugar in a batch of puff-puff. A customer bit into one and his face rearranged itself. On Thursday, a woman pulled out her phone and recorded Stella struggling behind the counter. Stella did not notice until it was too late. The video hit social media by evening. Title: Restaurant manager cannot cook to save her life. By Friday morning, it had been shared over 3,000 times. Stella sat in the empty restaurant and watched the view count climb. Her phone buzzed. A message from Margaret. I have seen the video. Do you want to quit or should I start preparing your training schedule? Stella typed back, neither. She put the phone down. She had no chef, no staff, no customers, no skills, and a video of her failure circulating across the city. She was not quitting, but she had no idea what to do next. Then, someone knocked on the door. The woman at the door was small, gray hair, wrinkled hands. She wore a simple wrapper and a blouse that saw better days but was ironed with precision. She carried a plastic bag. Good morning. I heard you need help in this kitchen. Stella looked at her. Who sent you? I sent myself. I heard about the restaurant. I heard about the video. The woman smiled. I have been cooking since before your mother was born. Let me help. You want to work here? For free. I do not need money. I need something to do. My grandchildren are grown. My husband is late. I am bored. Stella studied her. What is your name? Rachel. Rachel, I cannot pay you. I said I do not need pay. Are you deaf or just suspicious? Stella stepped aside. Come in. Rachel walked into the kitchen and immediately started cleaning. She moved with the confidence of a woman who had conquered 1,000 kitchens.
Within 30 minutes, the stoves were spotless, the pots were stacked properly, the prep table was wiped down. Then she opened the refrigerator, saw the mess inside, and closed it. She turned to Stella. When was the last time anyone cleaned this? Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. Rachel spent the next 2 hours scrubbing the refrigerator until it shone. Then she began cooking. The smell that filled the restaurant was unlike anything the copper pot had produced in years. Rich, warm, complex. It smelled like tradition wrapped in patience. Come here, Rachel said. You are going to learn. I don't cook. You do now. There is no chef, no staff. There is you and there is me. Wash your hands. Stella washed her hands. Rachel placed a pot in front of her. This is tuwo. You will stir it, slowly, not like you are fighting it, like you are asking it to cooperate. Stella stirred. The tuwo clumped. Rachel corrected her grip. She stirred again. Better. You have good hands, Rachel said. You just don't trust them yet. That evening, David visited. He found Stella in the kitchen, covered in flour, hair tied back, laughing at something Rachel had said. She had a streak of tomato paste on her forehead. She looked exhausted. She looked alive. You are smiling, David said. No, I am not. Your mouth is curved upward. That is smiling. Mind your business. He watched her for a moment. Mama called me again. She asked if you had quit. Tell her I am just getting started. David looked at Rachel, who was quietly packing her things. He did not recognize her. He had never seen her before. But Margaret had. Margaret had worked in Margaret's first restaurant 30 years ago. Stella did not know this, not yet. 3 weeks in, Stella was finding rhythm. Rachel taught her 5 dishes. Customers were slowly returning, not many, but enough to matter. Then the landlord walked in. He was a short man with a loud voice and a folder of papers. He sat at the cleanest table and spread his documents like a general planning an invasion. 30 days, he said. 30 days for what? Stella asked. Eviction notice. The lease is being terminated. You cannot do that. The lease has 8 months remaining. The lease has a clause, breach of operating standards. This restaurant has failed 2 health inspections in the past year. I can terminate. Those inspections were before my time. The clause does not care about time. 30 days. That is generous. Stella took the papers. Her hands were steady. Her jaw was not. After the landlord left, Teresa came out of the kitchen. She had been listening. Are you going to tell Madame Margaret? No. Why not? Because if I tell her, she will think I'm asking for help. I am not asking for help.
Teresa leaned against the counter. You know someone is pushing him. Landlords do not wake up and evict tenants for fun. Someone offered him something better. Stella knew she was right. She spent the entire evening making calls. 2 hours of polite questions and careful probing led her to one name, Uncle Bayo. David's uncle, Margaret's brother-in-law, a man who had wanted that property for years. 2 enemies, no names confirmed, 30 days and counting. Stella drove straight to David's apartment. She found him eating leftover rice from a takeaway container. She threw the eviction notice on the table. Your uncle is trying to shut me down. David looked at the papers. He did not look surprised. That made it worse. He said, I know. You know? Uncle Bayo mentioned the property last month. He wants to open a pharmacy there. And you did not think to tell me? Stella, my uncle is a 60-year-old man. I cannot tell him what to do. You can tell your mother. She owns this restaurant. David put down his fork. If I tell my mother, she will think you cannot handle it. She will step in, and the deal is off. Stella stared at him. So what do you suggest? Handle it yourself. You said you were a businesswoman. This is business. You are asking me to fight your family alone. I am asking you to prove what you said at our wedding, that you are more than a kitchen wife. Stella picked up the papers and left without another word. She sat in her car for 10 minutes. The dashboard clock read 9:15. She had 30 days, no lawyer, no money for a lawyer, no support from her husband, and an uncle who wanted her gone. She called Teresa. "We are not closing." "I did not say we were." "I need you to find me every tenant that landlord has, every property he manages, every complaint, every problem by tomorrow." "That is a lot of digging." "You are a waitress, Teresa. You gossip for a living. Use your powers for good this once." "That is the nicest insult I've ever received." Stella hung up. She looked at the eviction notice one more time. Then she folded it and placed it next to the first threatening note in her notebook. The break-in happened on a Sunday night. The restaurant was closed. Stella got a call from the security guard at 6 in the morning. "Madam, come quickly. They have destroyed everything." She drove fast. The front door was smashed. The lock was broken. Inside, shelves were overturned. Bags of rice split across the floor. Cooking oil poured across the tiles like a dark river. The one working stove was dented beyond repair. Glass was everywhere. Stella stood in the doorway. Her chest was tight. Her hands shook. Teresa arrived 20 minutes later. She said nothing. She just started picking up broken things. They walked in silence for an hour. Then Stella found it, a bracelet, silver and beaded, caught on a broken shelf. She held it up. "Whose is this?" Teresa looked at the bracelet. Her face changed. The color drained. She went back to sweeping. "Teresa, whose bracelet is this?" "I do not know." "It was on the broken shelf, the one near the back door, the door that was not forced open. Someone had a key, Teresa." Teresa stopped sweeping. She held the broom with both hands. Her knuckles were white. Stella walked toward her. "You are here, or you let someone in. Which one?" "I did not break anything." "But you let them in." Teresa's eyes filled, not with guilt, with something heavier, exhaustion, shame, the weight of a secret held too long. "Uncle Bayo paid me 3 months ago, before you came. He said a new manager would be hired. He said I should make sure the manager fails. He said if I did this, he would pay my mother's hospital bills." "How much did he give you?" "Half. He promised the rest when the restaurant closed." Stella's grip on the bracelet tightened. "The spoiled food? The cockroach? The threatening note?" Teresa nodded. "I did not put the cockroach there. That was real. But I knew the supplier would deliver bad goods. I arranged it." "The reports, the falsified profit reports, you helped the previous managers." "They asked. I needed the money." Stella looked at the ruined kitchen. Weeks of progress. Rachel's recipes, her burned fingers, the customers who had just started coming back. She should fire Teresa. She should call the police. She should call Margaret and end this. Instead, she sat down on an overturned bucket and put her face in her hands. Teresa stood there, holding the broom. "Are you going to fire me?" Stella looked up. "Do you still need money for your mother?" "Yes." "Then sit down." Teresa sat. "You are going to tell me everything Uncle Bayo planned, every person he contacted, every supplier he influenced, every move he made. And then you are going to help me rebuild this kitchen with your own hands. And if I do, I keep you. But if you ever lie to me again, I will not fire you. I will call Mama Margaret myself and tell her everything, and we both know what that means." Teresa swallowed. "Understood. Good. Now get up. We have a restaurant to fix." Stella worked 16 hours a day for the next 2 weeks. She rebuilt the kitchen with help from Teresa and Rachel. They scrubbed, painted, and improvised. When they couldn't afford new equipment, they repaired the old. Rachel knew a mechanic who fixed the broken stove for a bag of rice and a promise of onamasa. Teresa delivered everything she knew about Uncle Bayo, every supplier he had contacted, every conversation she had overheard. Stella wrote it all down in her notebook,
next to the threatening note and the eviction letter. She took the information to the landlord, not as a begging daughter-in-law, as a businesswoman with evidence. Your tenant at the plaza on Market Street is 3 months behind on rent. Your building on Hill Road has no fire certificate, and the lease agreement you gave me violates the standard commercial terms in 3 different clauses.
The landlord stared at her. I am not going anywhere, Stella said. If you want to take me to court, I will bring every document, including the ones you do not want the city inspectors to see. The landlord tore up the eviction notice. He did not smile, he did not speak. He simply left. Teresa was impressed. You are scarier than I thought. I learned from the best, your former boss. Stella rebranded. She called it the Copper Pot Reborn. Modern decor on a budget. She trained 3 local women as kitchen staff. None of them had restaurant experience. All of them needed work. Rachel taught them the traditional recipes while Stella designed the menu. Classic dishes with modern presentation. She launched a social media campaign through her fashion brand's audience. 80,000 followers seeing food photos every day. The caption read, "From burnt rice to boss kitchen. Come taste the comeback." The viral video worked in her favor. People came curious. They expected disaster. They found decent food, served by a woman with fire in her eyes. They posted their own videos. Word spread. Ngozi walked in on a Friday. She stood at the door, watching the full tables. Her face was unreadable. "You actually did it," she said. "We are doing it, not done. The restaurant across town fired me last week. They said I was too slow." Stella looked at her. "You left me with nothing." "I know. Give me one reason I should let you back." Ngozi looked at the kitchen, at Rachel, at the women working. "Because I am a better chef than I was a leader, and you are a better leader than I gave you credit for." Stella thought for a long moment. 3 months probation. You follow Rachel's recipes, no changes without my approval, and you train the new staff. Ngozi nodded. Fair. Also, you apologized to Teresa. For what? She covered your shifts for 2 years without a thank you. Apologize. Ngozi looked at Teresa. Teresa raised one eyebrow. Ngozi mumbled something. Louder, Stella said. I am sorry, Teresa. Teresa smiled. I accept. Now go wash your hands. You smell like failure. By the end of week 6, the Copper Pottery Board had a waiting list on weekends. Stella allowed herself one moment of pride. One, then she went back to work. She came early one morning. Rachel was at the back table, writing in a small notebook. When she saw Stella, she closed it quickly, too quickly. What are you writing? Stella asked. Recipes, for the new menu. Stella nodded. She did not think about it again until 3 days later, when she found a carbon copy of Rachel's note tucked inside a delivery box. It was not recipes. It was a report. Detailed, dates, times, customer numbers, revenue estimates, and personal observations. The address on the envelope was Margaret's home. Stella's stomach dropped. She read every line. Rachel had been reporting on her for weeks. Not just reporting, analyzing. She noted when she lost her temper, she noted when she made good decisions, she noted her strengths and weaknesses like a scientist studying a lab rat. She drove to the restaurant that evening. Rachel was alone, prepping for the next day. How long? Stella asked. Rachel looked up. She did not pretend to misunderstand. From the beginning. Margaret sent you. Yes. To spy on me. To observe her words. She sent you to watch me fail. Rachel put down her knife. She wiped her hand slowly. Yes, that is what she said, but that is not what I did. Stella held up the report. You wrote everything, every mistake, every argument with suppliers, every time I burnt the rice. Read the last page. Stella turned to the last page. The handwriting was different, smaller, more careful. Stella has more determination than any manager I have seen in 30 years. She does not know how to cook, but she knows how to learn. She does not know how to lead, but she knows how to listen. She will succeed, not because she is talented, because she is stubborn. And stubborn is what this family needs. Stella read it twice. You edited the reports. I removed the worst parts. I added context she would not have understood. I made you look better than you were on bad days. On good days, I reported honestly because you deserve the credit. Why? She sent you to watch me fail. Rachel stepped closer. That woman sent you to watch me fail. I chose to help you win. Do not punish me for caring. You lied to me. I protected you. There is a difference. Who decides which one it is? You do, right now. Stella looked at the report. She looked at Rachel, this old woman who scrubbed her refrigerator, who taught her to stir tuwo, who showed up every morning without pay because she believed in something Stella had not believed in herself. If I ever find out you are still reporting to her without telling me first, I will quit before you fire me. Stella tore the report in half. Make your own recipes from now on. I will review Margaret's questions myself. Fair. Now finish prepping. We have 40 reservations tomorrow. Rachel picked up her knife. For what it's worth, she asks about you more than she asks about the restaurant. I don't care. You should. It means she's watching for different reasons now. The health inspector arrived on a Tuesday morning. No warning, no appointment. She wore a uniform that meant business and carried a clipboard that could close restaurants forever. We received a complaint, anonymous. I'm here to inspect. Stella's blood cooled. She looked at Teresa. Teresa looked at the ceiling fan, which was still making that sound. Inspect away, Stella said. The inspector went through the kitchen like a forensic team. She checked storage temperatures, she examined food labels, she opened containers, she took notes on everything. At 11, 2 hours before the inspector would give her verdict, a fire started in the kitchen. Not a large fire, a small one, behind the stove where the wiring ran through the wall. Sparks first, then smoke, then flame. Teresa grabbed the extinguisher, Stella grabbed buckets of water. Rachel covered the food. The 3 women moved like a team that had been through worse, because they had. The fire died in 7 minutes, but the smoke damage was bad. The wall was black. The inspector stood in the corner, untouched, still writing. The wiring was tampered with, Rachel said quietly. She pointed to where someone had stripped the insulation. This was not an accident.
Exactly at the damaged wall. Then at the inspector. Can I have until tomorrow morning? I will fix everything. You have until 4 p.m. today. If this kitchen is not spotless and safe by then, I shut you down permanently. 4 hours, 3 women, 1 ruined wall, and a kitchen full of smoke. They called everyone. Ngozi came with tools. The 3 new staff members came without being asked. David arrived with paint he had borrowed from a friend. What are you doing here? Stella asked. You are my wife. Your emergency is my emergency. Can you paint? I painted my entire flat last year. Did it look good? That is not the point. They worked. Rachel directed the kitchen cleaning. Ngozi rewired the stove properly. Teresa scrubbed every surface twice. Stella repainted the damaged wall. David held the ladder and made bad jokes that nobody laughed at, but everybody needed. At 3:58, the inspector returned. She walked through slowly. She checked surfaces. She checked the wiring. She checked food storage. She checked her clipboard one final time. Pass. Conditional. You have 1 point above the minimum. 1 more violation in the next 6 months and I shut you down permanently. Stella exhaled. The inspector lowered her clipboard. Off the record, the complaint that brought me here came from a law office, Bayan and Associates. I recognize the format. Someone with money and connections wants you gone. Fix your security, install cameras, and watch your back. She left. Stella stood in the clean kitchen looking at the new paint. David put his hand on her shoulder. You did not have to come, she said. I know. You cannot even paint properly. There's a drip on that wall. I will fix it. Fix it tomorrow. Right now, I need to sit down. She sat. Teresa sat next to her. Rachel brought water. They drank in silence. 3 women who had just survived a war that was not over. Later that night, Stella found the financial records. Rachel was cleaning the old filing cabinet behind the storeroom when a false bottom gave way. Inside were folders, old ones, dated back 6 years. Stella opened them at midnight. What she found made her hands shake. The copper pot had never been a failing restaurant, not naturally. 5 years ago, it was profitable. 4 years ago, Margaret began redirecting its budget. Marketing funds went to her other branches, staff bonuses were cut, equipment maintenance was deferred, supply orders were reduced below sustainable levels. Margaret had strangled her own restaurant, slowly, deliberately, over 4 years. Stella read the numbers again. The restaurant did not fail because of bad management. It failed because Margaret made it would. She created a problem, then she handed the problem to Stella and watched. Stella drove to Margaret's house at midnight. The gate was open. The lights were on. Margaret was waiting in the living room, as if she knew. "You knew I would come tonight," Stella said. "I have been expecting you for weeks. You killed this restaurant on purpose. You starved it, you took its money, you let it rot, then you gave it to me like a poisoned gift." Margaret did not flinch. "Sit down, Stella." "I do not want to sit." "Then stand, but you will listen." Stella stood. "Every manager I hired before you failed because they had no reason to fight. The restaurant was dying. They could see it. They gave up. I wanted someone who would not give up, someone who had something to prove. You wanted a puppet. I wanted a partner, but I could not hand my empire to someone who had never bled for anything. So you made me bleed. I made you fight. There is a difference. You broke me, Stella. You let me think I was failing. You let me doubt everything I knew. You sent Rachel to spy on me. You watched me struggle, and you did nothing. I watched you survive. That is not nothing." Stella's voice cracked. "What if I had quit? Then you would not have been the woman I need. That's a cruel test. My mother-in-law threw a pot of hot stew at my face in front of 30 people. I was 22. I had been married for 3 months. I didn't know how to cook. She called me useless. She said her son had married a decorative object." The room went still. "I did not throw stew at you, Stella. I gave you a kitchen. I gave you a chance. Mine gave me burns that took a year to heal." Stella sat down. Margaret's voice was different now, lower, raw, like a wound she had covered for decades and was finally unwrapping. Her name was Mama Carol, my husband's mother. She was old school. A woman's place was the kitchen. If you could not cook, you were nothing. It didn't matter what else you could do. I had a degree. I had plans. I wanted to open a boutique. Her husband laughed when I mentioned it, said boutiques are for women whose husbands cannot feed them. "What did your husband do?" Stella asked. "Nothing. He told me to learn to cook and keep the peace." "David's father?" "Yes. He was a good man in many ways, but on that he chose his mother over me. I never forgot it." Margaret set the glass down. I did not leave. I did not argue. I went into the kitchen the next morning and I cooked. I cooked badly. I cooked terribly. I burned everything. For months, Mama Carol mocked me every single day. "But you kept going." "I kept going because I refused to let her win. Within a year, I was the best cook in that house. Within 2 years, neighbors were paying me to cook for their events. Within 5 years, I opened my first restaurant." "The Copper Pot?" "No. The Copper Pot was my 3rd restaurant, my flagship, the one I built with the money from the first 2. It was supposed to be my masterpiece." "And you let it die?" "I let it become a test because I needed to know something, Stella." "What?" Margaret turned to her. Her eyes were bright, not with anger, with something fragile. Hope. "I needed to know if the next generation of women in this family would fight the way I fought. Not with fists, not with pride, with work, with resilience, with the kind of stubbornness that makes a woman cook in a broken kitchen at midnight, because quitting is not an option." "You could have just asked me." "You would have said yes.
Everyone says yes. Words are cheap. I needed to see it. Stella was quiet for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, a dog barked. The night was heavy with truth. I am not a mother-in-law that will ever throw anything at you, but I will push you, because no one pushed me with love. They pushed me with cruelty. I am trying to do better. I just do not know how to do it softly. Stella swallowed. You do not do anything softly, Margaret. I know. It is my greatest flaw and my greatest weapon. Your son is terrified of you. My son is terrified of conflict. That is different. He married you because you are not. That is why I chose this test, because if anyone could survive it, it would be the woman who stood at her own wedding and said she does not cook. Stella almost smiled. That was not my finest moment. It was your truest, and truth is what I needed. 1 year later. The Copper Pot Reborn had a second location. Stella designed the concept. Margaret approved the budget. Together, they had doubled the family business revenue in 12 months. Stella stood in front of a cooking class. 12 women, ages 18 to 45. Some were students, some were market traders, some had never held a knife before. All of them were hungry to learn. She wore a custom apron, printed across the front in bold letters were the words, I don't cook, I create. Rachel stood beside her, correcting a young woman's grip on a knife. Teresa managed the kitchen behind them, barking orders with the authority of someone who had earned every word. Margaret sat in the back row. She watched quietly. Her hands were folded. Her face was calm. David leaned over to her. She's a good teacher. She's a stubborn woman who refused to quit. That is what makes her good. That is what you said about yourself once. Margaret looked at him. Do not repeat my words to me, David. I remember everything. Stella demonstrated a dish. Traditional base, modern finish. The women leaned forward. They asked questions. They laughed at Stella's jokes. They burned things and tried again. That was the lesson, not the recipe, not the technique, the trying again. After class, Stella and Margaret sat together in the empty restaurant. The chairs were stacked. The kitchen was clean. The smell of fresh peppers and palm oil hung in the air like a memory. I was angry at you for a long time, Stella said. I know. I was cruel. Cruelty and wisdom sometimes wear the same face. The difference is the intention behind it. What was your intention? Margaret looked at her hands. I wanted to make sure that when I am gone, this family has a woman who can carry it. Not because she can cook, because she can survive anything and still build something worth keeping. Stella was quiet. Then she spoke. I will carry it, but not the way you did. I will do it my way. I would not have it any other way. David walked in. He looked at his mother. He looked at his wife, 2 women who had gone to war and came out partners. Are you two planning world domination again? He asked. Something like that, Stella said. Good. Just make sure there's food involved. I am starving. Margaret threw a napkin at him. Rachel laughed from the kitchen doorway. Teresa shouted that if he wanted food, he should cook it himself. The family laughed together. The sound filled the restaurant like warm light. And somewhere in that sound was a truth older than any recipe, that the strongest bonds are not born in comfort. They are forged in fire, tested in struggle, and seasoned with time. The same ingredients that make a great meal. And that's where we leave it for today. Thank you genuinely for sticking with me all the way to the end. If this story pulled you in even a little, do me a favor and tap that like button. It really does help Rosa Tales grow. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts or what part hit you the hardest. And if you're new here, subscribe to Rosa Tales. There are so many more stories waiting for you. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next tale.